Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
Thursday, almost done with August. Remember, the beginning of August, the question was, would we be able to keep our focus on Jeffrey Epstein? Or would Trump
That was
do
last
something-
August,
would
right?
Trump do something to distract our attention from Jeffrey Epstein? How'd that go, Matt?
I think that, well, look, I think Epstein has left a mark, but yeah, we've moved on. We're 3 or 4 scandals past that, but it is still lingering. I mean, it's looming there. It's still a thing,
I
but
do think they'll bring Epstein back next month, but it's still sort of hard to get your mind around how much damage could be done constitutionally and economically in less than a month's time.
well, and Bill, I'm not sure how Epstein can compete with Uncle Herschel and Cracker Barrel. So let's start there.
The big news.
Are you a
big
fan
news.
of Cracker Barrel? Do you like Cracker Barrel, and how do you feel about this change? And they
So I
reverted
think we
back. Now
established I live closer to a Crackle Barrel than you.
that may be. That may be.
I don't think I'm quite the northernmost Cracker Barrel, but I think I'm close. I don't. I mean, I think I've been to a Cracker Barrel in my life. I've not gone to the Cracker Barrel near where I live. I haven't really seen the point to do that. I don't really get this one, Matt. I don't understand. They took out the old-timey person with the barrel, but why does it make it woke just to have the name? There's nothing liberal or socialistic to say Cracker Barrel. It's still Cracker Barrel. It's still providing the same middle-brow food. So what's woke about the name Cracker Barrel in your logo?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, right? So the logo used to evoke kind of an old-fashioned rural vibe, and what they've done is make it more like cosmopolitan, sophisticated. Like I don't know how to describe it.
That overstates it. It's not that highbrow a logo. It's just the name on a yellow backdrop.
Yeah. Well, I also think that there is a sensitivity to products and brands that are perceived to be in the conservative sphere, right? So like Bud Light, the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing was seen as an affront because Bud Light had marketed themselves as being kind of a conservative person's beer. And so it seemed like encroaching on our turf, so to speak. And I think that's part of the deal with Cracker Barrel. I mean, to the extent that we should be worried about what a private company decides to do with their logo, that I think this helps maybe explain it a bit.
But again, I'm not defending the attacks on Bud Light in any way, but I get that there are people on the social conservative right and the MAGA right that are bigoted towards transgender people and so didn't want to see a company market to the transgender community. Like, I think it's abhorrent, but it's a logical conclusion what's going on there. Like, there's nothing political, there's nothing about social progress or even niche marketing to do with taking out the old-timey person in the logo and just having the name in the logo. I mean, how thin-skinned do you have to be to take offense at that?
Yeah, very thin-skinned. But look, this is a culture war, and I don't like this, but I understand it. And I would really recommend anyone who wants to know what they're up to. There's this book, it's 25, 30 years old, called Confrontational Politics by a guy named H.L. Richardson that really, I think, explains what the right is up to today. And basically, it's a sense of like they are going to constantly go to war and constantly be on offense. And so, like the Dylan Mulvaney thing, right? Does it really matter? Like, and you could even say, like, if Bud Light wants to market to the trans community or to woke progressives, like, fine, let them go. If that's where they want to go, they don't want to be our beer, fine. Let them go. Let them do what they want. I think that today's right sees things differently. And it's like, no, this is our turf. We're going to fight for it. And guess what? It is actually working. I mean, Cracker Barrel, maybe it's a small victory. We're keeping the old-timey old guy. Or Uncle Herschel's staying. They're not getting rid of him. Bud Light had a come-to-Jesus moment and went back to their old brand. The NFL, last time I checked, Colin Kaepernick ain't quarterbacking in the NFL. I haven't heard a lot of Dixie Chicks songs lately on the radio either, Bill. This is cancel culture. I get that it's ironic and all of that, but in a culture war where the goal is to basically punish people who go off, I'll be politically incorrect, go off the reservation. If you want to basically create a world where you don't have to encounter things that make you uncomfortable, this is kind of the way you would go about it.
Just to correct the record, I saw the Chicks on tour last year.
By the way, I find that the chick thing offensive. I think it should be the Dixie Ladies, but whatever.
I mean, the Chicks are sort of an interesting story because I think they very successfully rebranded, not so much the name of the group, but just even before that point, they basically were able to find a new audience and not be reliant on country radio to maintain a very profitable band.
And Bill, I think you and I would both agree the best country music being made right now is not on country radio. I mean, without doubt,
it's not even debate. Bud Light is a case study because I would sort of quibble with your original premise. I don't think Bud Light was marketed as a conservative beer. It was marketed as an everybody's beer, an American beer. And a long-standing policy, as some of their major beer companies, to try to do lots of niche marketing. I mean, they were marketing to the gay community for a long time without anyone really caring. Everybody drinks beer. Every drinks beer, so you try to reach them all.
Well, some people drink.
What's that?
But it's a little. There are brands like I don't drink Bud Light. Actually, it's not my type of beer. But so I do think that there are. Look, Bud Light. They had I don't know former athletes. Were they the taste great, less filling?
Beer marketing to conservative areas. With
football.
Macho marketing. There's obviously lots of that. And because of that, because that's such a large chunk of the business, when the right was able to say, you market to transgender people, you lose us, Bud Light made the bottom line decision saying you transgender people aren't as important to us as these middle American folks. See you later. I'm not supporting or endorsing it. I'm just characterizing it. The Cracker Barrel thing, I'm not in the boardroom. So on one level, it's sort of, I would say, antithetical to conservatism to say, I'm not going to let the business owners determine what is best for their bottom line and how to reach the most people to make money. If they made Cracker Barrel, from what I can tell, is largely a truck stop kind of thing. It's on the highways, right? That's where it is near me.
Yeah. I mean, I would say truck stop, but definitely travelers.
Yeah. It's not really in literal rural areas. It's by highways. And I can only assume they were getting less and less business because people were thinking, I'm a traveler on a highway and that doesn't look like my kind of place. And so they want to reach a different group of people. Not necessarily like a bunch of Harvard grads, but just people on the road. I mean, the logo looks like almost any other kind of fast food kind of place, not a bougie place.
There've been a lot of rebrands, right? I mean, like Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. I mean, for whatever reason, somebody caught wind of this and made a big deal out of it. And then obviously that Chris Rufo guy is the one who I think really took it into overdrive. But this could have happened and nobody would have known and nobody would have cared. But I think it is indicative of where we're at today. And look, I have a friend, I've mentioned him before, I'm sure on the show, named Brian Lundy, Brian Lundy, I think he was executive director of the DCCC at one point. That he ran Democrats for Bush. Just a very smart operative guy. And one of his theories is
but
that
he's not a Democrat, right?
I don't think he still is. He lives in North Dakota now.
He actually was a Democrat when he started Democrats for Bush.
Well, he was like Paul Simon's campaign manager in 1988. Right. He was, I think Rahm Emanuel worked for him at the DCCC at some point when he was ED. He's probably a Republican now. I don't know. But one of the things he told me is abandonment is the most underrated political weapon in politics. And I was just emailing him about this, and he's like, yeah, Cracker Barrel did the right thing. Abandonment. He said that CNN was smart to pull the plug on their CNN Plus before they had to. and the Cracker Barrel probably should have done it a little sooner. But I think they probably made the right move. I mean, it was getting ugly, Bill.
Well, all these folks are making bottom line decisions. If they feel that this is making us lose business, then they have to do it. But I assume they did it because they felt like they have to gain business in some way, and the current logo wasn't helping them do that. And so, I mean, this gets to a large point. We're going to talk about Cracker Barrel for a full hour, but for the MAGA right that presumably wants to sustain power, they are primarily burning everything down, policy-wise, disrupting America and disrupting the world in a way that you can look at the polls and say, well, Trump's holding steady. He's still at about 45%. You know, I would not look at that as something to be proud of. That's not really a sustainable strategy to try to eke by the Electoral College with sub 50% approval. On your second go round in power, you're not impressing people. You're not growing. You're just maintaining polarization at best. And on top of that, you're doing things you might put Cracker Barrel in such a horrible position that they had to abandon what they were doing, and that may make you feel powerful. What a flex I just did. I forced a company to abandon a logo. But you haven't made Cracker Barrel happy. You haven't won new friends doing that. You just put people in awkward positions.
Well, but I do think that there are Americans out there, Bill, who feel like the world is rapidly changing around them. They have no control over anything, and there's no consistency, and they want to keep the freaking Cracker Barrel. And this is a big win for them.
Anybody believes that. I think there's one person walking around that says, man, I really need that Cracker Barrel logo to stay where it is, or else the American way of life is lost forever.
It's indicative of everything. It's like you grew up rooting for the Cleveland Indians with your dad, watching games with your dad at the factory worker, and now they're the Guardians. They took that away from you. And then you go to the Cracker Barrel. I'm not agreeing.
Political control of every branch of government right now. And if you are not satisfied with how government is operating on your behalf, you're still angry, you're still terrified at how the world is changing around you, that you have to channel your energy into stopping a logo rebrand. You have to ask yourself, what life choices are you making?
This is their deliverable, Bill. This is what they want Trump to do. I mean, Trump wasn't even, well, I think he might have weighed in at some point, but this primarily was not Trump. But this is the deliverable. They don't care about passing bills or public policy. This is what they want. Delivered. So it's a win.
For the rest of us,
until it goes bankrupt, in which case it goes out of business and we all lose Cracker Barrel. Maybe they should have changed the logo.
We're not this addled, okay? I mean, if that's literally where you are in life, I'm sorry. You are mush brain. We should not.
I'm going to cut this up and make it look like you're just slamming me.
I'm not slamming
you. Are addled. You are addled. You are mush brain.
I mean, look, for a lot of things, they say, hey, I understand you're worried about, the sustainability of your local economy. And I know change can be unsettling. Let's be sympathetic. Let's try to make sure that we explain our policies in a way that will make you feel comfortable. As a general rule, I don't like, talking down to people. Anyone who's literally like, I got to change this logo rebrand or America's lost. I'm sorry, F you. Like, that's nuts. And I don't think that we should. I'm a little frustrated, and this sort of, if we can segue into something else here, for example, the militarization of our police. I'm a little frustrated at sort of pundit reflex when they see something that is manifestly insane to try to rationalize it with bonkers political analysis, or in the case of Cracker Barrel, bonkers financial analysis. A business should not have to cater to insane people to broaden their customer base. And I'm probably not a perfect analogy, but if a president is militarizing police on specious emergency grounds, the response shouldn't be, well, Democrats should be careful that they don't make it seem like they're soft on crime. You should be, having your hair on fire that we're militarizing the police for manifestly political reasons when there is no cause whatsoever for any kind of emergency action. And you should not even care what the polls say or what the politics are. It's nuts, and it should be called out as nuts.
I do feel bad, Bill, opening the show with Cracker Barrel. So let's transition. I want to talk to you about the Taylor Swift engagement. No,
It does, Matt.
it is a legit story. Classes were canceled, kids were sent home. So Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce engaged. I'm hearing now that there's talk that they might want to start a family at some point, have some kids. The question, Bill,
yes,
and I know you've got 2 daughters, you've got to be up to speed on Taylor Swift.
Yes, everyone was very happy in the household.
We have a problem right now. People aren't getting married. People aren't having kids. Will this start a trend? Is this going to make marriage, certainly getting married, cool again?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't even know if they're going to have kids or not yet. You're speculating. It's really possible, but who knows? I think the trends in marriage and relationships are more or less driven by societal needs. Like I'm married. I have kids. I'm not disparaging the institution, but it's not 200 years ago when you literally had to do these things to be self-sustaining and to sustain the existence of your community. If you did not reproduce, if you're a sustenance farmer, you had to get married and produce children to have labor to exist, and we don't live in.
Do you think these columns write themselves, Bill?
What's that?
Do you think these tweets write themselves? Come on, I need kids.
We are enough of an industrialized, technologically advanced society that individual people can make a decision that I don't need to get married to get by. I don't need to have children myself for society to continue. And it's gonna be a personal choice, not a societal obligation. So this is sort of my message to the trad wife community out there, which I know is when I said I'm not speaking to just women, I'm talking to the men that perpetuate it. I guess it's a theme for the show here, in that you have this very, very, I think in the big picture, small niche constituency that is obsessed with clinging to the past. So there's something in it to a point where it's not just making a personal choice for yourself, it's trying to impose a value set on everybody else, where it is a freaking logo or your choice about your family and how you want to live your life, to take the criteria that people used 200 years ago, which are not applicable to today. We do not have the same economic societal needs for reproduction to live. And so we were allowed to make more choices without dooming society. And so ignoring that, we're imposing, the tail is wagging the dog here. So that part of the MAGA coalition is feeding the broader MAGA movement and causing untold damage to society. I get the argument that, if you don't have enough population growth, that's not good for societies and whatnot. There's an answer to that, which is called immigration. And this side all sort of ties together. If people on the MAGA right weren't so mother frickin' racist, then you wouldn't have these concerns about population, because you have an answer to that issue. But since bringing in immigrants is anathema to these folks, you have to then say, oh, I'm sorry, guys, you have to do the way we did 200 years ago, whether you like it or not. And by the way,
I've got 3
your freaking logo.
I've got 3 different directions to go with this. All right, so number one, I actually think that Taylor Swift could make a slight difference. I mean, she's hugely successful, wildly popular. She's obviously a role model to a lot of young women. If she gets married to Travis Kelce, and if they stay married for a few years at least, let's hope, that could, I think, set something of an example and normalize, again, the idea of getting married, that it's cool, it's something within at least the imagination. So I think that could be a net positive. Do you disagree there, Bill?
I was going to say the last bit again.
I mean, I think that if it's an example, and if Taylor Swift does it, I'm not saying everyone's going to run off and get married, but it normalizes what used to be a very normal thing, the idea of getting married.
I mean, like maybe on the margins, but I other celebrities have gotten married. It's like nobody does it anymore. It happens less. Again, I think I'm not anti-marriage. I am married, but for rational reasons. Some people don't want to do it. They want their personal independence. You and I might say, I don't want to die alone. I want to make sure that I got some kids around to wipe the drool off my face when I'm 88 years old. Other people don't care about that so much. They want to travel, they want a clean house, they want to sleep whenever they feel like it. Like, those are the choices they want to make.
Preach.
And
Preach.
I think that person's going to say, oh, Taylor Swift got married? I'm going to reconsider the vacation I planned for myself.
I think if you're a 16, 17-year-old girl now, right now, and you're seeing Taylor Swift get married, it again, maybe on the margins. Okay, so that's number one.
Here's the thing, Matt. There are pros and cons to being married, and there are pros and cons to not being married. I mean, marriage, life is messy and complicated. Nothing is ever perfect,
Yes.
no matter what choices you make. And there's a bit of like a pro-marriage argument out there that tries to sell it as more emotionally fulfilling, more economically advantageous, all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm married, so I'm not against.
So I know how utterly useless marriage can be, how soul crushing the institution is.
But with anything, like, some days are better than others, like you can oversell anything. Part of being in a successful marriage is not being set up by false expectations and accepting that life is complicated and not everybody's going to be perfect, and realize that even though there's going to be bad times, that in the end you're going to be enriched by sharing your life with somebody. But not everybody's going to feel that way, or you might want it and just didn't have the right person and it didn't work out, and so you want to have the choice to be divorced and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore, and maybe I'm not going to get remarried because it didn't work out for me, and that's okay. So like Taylor got engaged. That marriage may suck 5 years from now. I don't know if any singular celebrity marriage is going to be able to definitively settle an argument over these pros and cons when there isn't a definitive answer one way or the other, because at the end it's personal choice.
Let me just say this. It's another W. We got Uncle Herschel. He's back ensconced on top of the roof of the Cracker Barrel. Now we got Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce getting married. Country star marries an NFL star.
The country star. So Taylor Swift, the scourge of wokeness, the epitome of wokeness, 2 minutes ago.
Well, don't worry though. Before she was the epitome
of America's sweetheart,
but before she was the epitome of wokeness, she was the epitome of whiteness. Do you remember this? There was a time when she was being held up.
Is there anything Taylor Swift can't do, man?
She's got eras. She's got the white supremacist era. She's got the woke era. She covers a lot of ground, Bill. Look, I would say that marriage, I think we do have a loneliness epidemic. I think that close relationships generally are helpful. And I think from a societal standpoint, like a people who cannot sustain their population by reproducing, I think it does say something about them, about their optimism for the future and commitment to the species, to be honest. So
that's the JD
I think it's a big deal. What's that?
That's the JD Vance view.
Well, and look, I'll say this too, and I realize I'm playing devil's advocate this whole episode, and I'm okay with that. But there, obviously, a part of conservatism is hearkening back to, to try to conserve kind of like traditional things, like traditional values. And so I don't think that this is, I realize that meddling in business, for example, is anathema to free market, fiscal, libertarian conservatism. But if you want to talk about traditionalism, kind of a communitarian conservatism, this is not inconsistent with that, for sure.
I know you're trying to avoid these subjects, Matt.
Okay. What do you want to talk about, Bill? There's some serious stuff happening in the world.
We're talking about ways, Taylor Swift more indirectly, but sort of in the whole kind of, trad wife thing and the Cracker Barrel thing, ways in which certain conservatives are trying to impose values on others, right? Is that a fair characterization?
They're heavy-handed and in trying to keep things the way they want them,
okay,
or the way they were.
Well, they want others to do things, so things are the way they want.
Yes,
they're not just retreating to their own little enclaves. They're trying to others do the things that they want to see.
Well, yes, I agree. I would say, and I know nuance is the killer of clarity here. I do think, again, I was making this point. I think I heard it on commentary, maybe, but I think it's valid, which is There's certain areas that I think they're more likely to be interested in. So like Cracker Barrel was perceived as our place. So I'm going to keep it. If I'm trying to think of like what's a really kind of hip, like cosmopolitan brand. We wouldn't care about
Chipotle.
that. What was that?
Chipotle?
Chipotle probably wouldn't be, if Chipotle changed their logo, it probably wouldn't matter as much to us, right?
So in the past few weeks, Donald Trump has had a sort of government ownership, partial ownership in private companies.
Yep.
10%,
baby.
Police against the will of the people. It's policing.
Well, Mayor Bowser seems to be going along with it. Eleanor Holmes Norton seems to be quite fine with it.
Being in a hostage situation is not the same as welcoming. Okay, come on.
I'm just saying.
You cannot plausibly argue. She was like, "Thank you, Mr. Trump, for saving us." There's no way to determine what she was doing.
We're 15 minutes away from her saying that, but
What's
okay.
That?
We're close to her saying that, but okay.
You can read between the lines and know full well she does not want this to happen. And so no other city is begging for it either, even though Trump is threatening it.
Yes. Baltimore, Chicago.
What's that?
Baltimore, Chicago. Right. The list continues.
And we're also, we've gone head, the full throttle on tariffs, which is also imposing burdens, not just on other countries, but jacking up prices on Americans for no obvious purpose beyond the accumulation of power by a lone executive without any kind of congressional consent. None of this is traditional economic conservatism, federalism, nothing that a old school Republican would have been comfortable with, but all of it, we're talking about Cracker Barrel, that sort of citizen MAGA trying to flex cultural power with, I think, Trump's encouragement. Other things are more direct assertions of federal executive branch government power. How unsettled, is there anything going on in the Republican Party here to say this crosses a line? I mean, I did see one column, at least one column from, I think it was Jim Garrity, in the Washington Post. He writes for the National Review, clearly a conservative person, hardly a rhino, who made the, I think, straightforward point that all these Republicans, including Donald Trump, have said, we got to stop Mondani. We can't have a socialist running New York City. That is beyond the pale. But Donald Trump can use the federal government and outright buy shares in companies. I mean, he did stuff with U.S. Steel where he has like a golden share. So he has one share, but that gives him like veto power over decisions. This can be done without barely a peep from economic libertarians. Maybe there's some peeps out there that I can't hear, but on the whole, it's so not deafening hearing Republicans saying, whoa, wait a second. We're the party that hates socialism. What's going on here exactly that Donald Trump is doing? So
there's a right-wing's the wrong word, sort of a Trumpy comedian. I think his name's Tim Dillon. Do you know who this is? And he recently said, I guess he's friends with Alex Jones, and he's kind of a conspiracy guy. And he recently said, he went through all the stuff Donald Trump is doing, and he's like, this is all the stuff that Alex Jones has been warning about. Like Trump is like, it's here. The boot, what's the term?
Jackbooted thugs.
The jackbooted thugs are taking over the streets.
I mean, all of a sudden people said in the Waco days. I mean, how is that different now with National Guard? I saw a podcaster on the Daily Wire. He starts by making the point, Trump's got the right to do this. This is DC. This is federal property. They can do whatever they want. And I think we might talk this on the past show. I can't remember. But, there is a grain of truth to that. There is emergency powers under the DC home rule. The president can assert emergency power. I think I said previously he can do that, but if there's not an actual emergency, then that is an abuse of power. But then he goes on to say, well, and Trump should do this in other cities too. Clearly, there's a disconnect there because you don't have home rule laws in other cities. But you talk about normalizing things. Like this is Trump trying to normalize this brazen militarization of American domestic life. I mean, there are people in the Bill Clinton days and the Barack Obama days that said, this is why we have a Second Amendment. We have a Second Amendment to arm ourselves in case the federal government tries to steamroll us so we can fight back. And I'm not a big Second Amendment guy, Matt. I'm not arguing it's time for armed insurrection here. But where are those guys now when Donald Trump is literally trying to militarize the policing of America?
And do you know who warned against this, Bill? October 23rd, 2024. Kamala Harris gave a speech and said that Donald Trump wants to use the military against us. And I wish I had the exact quote here. Kamala Harris, remember, Joe Biden was going after Trump as an authoritarian. Kamala Harris takes over the campaign and she starts talking about joy and freedom. But at the end, she kind of panics and reverts back to the Trump is an authoritarian message. And by the way, Trump had said he wanted to be dictator, but only on day one and stuff like that. Bill, the public doesn't care. They don't care. The democracy argument didn't work. I think that if Trump...
Matt, I mean, let's give the public a chance to redeem itself here. I mean, just because Kamala Harris said it ahead of time that people were mad about inflation in the moment.
No, but you're making my point.
People are going to say
inflation is the way to beat.
I've already seen Matt Lewis saying Kamala Harris 2028. Kamala Harris was right. Matt Lewis wearing the cap. Kamala Harris was right about everything.
Well, I think you and I knew she was right at the time when she said Donald Trump has these authoritarian tendencies, and if you elect him again, and look, David Frum told me on my podcast 3 or 4 years ago that if Trump gets back in, the dinosaurs had learned how to work the doorknobs, or the velociraptors had learned how to work the doorknobs, he'd be much more dangerous because he had purged people like Esper, these high-ranking military officials who were his chiefs of staff, national security advisor, DOD. He's replaced them with loyalists. And so I think he's much more dangerous this time. It was totally predictable. And Harris was absolutely right. And nobody cared. And it's not like Trump hadn't done a whole bunch of other crazy things. And he said that he was going to run a campaign. His opening slogan was retribution. What about John Bolton? What about Chris Christie? He's doing what he told us he would do. My theory, Bill, is, look, you got to fight for democracy. But when it comes to a campaign, I just don't think the American public, I bet you, I'm sure there's polling that would contradict this, but come election day, I'll put it this way. I think taking over these cities, unless there's some Kent state type situation that happens.
Which is hardly an implausible scenario.
But in general, as of now, I think people see it as like he's fighting crime. He's tough on crime.
I would not base political analysis on the public mindset in October 2024 before all these actions were taken. There is a huge opportunity here to call out. I mean, this is practically the worst case scenario you could have. It is cartoonish. Like if you did this in a movie, it would seem like a ridiculous dystopian future.
Totally.
And again, the attempt by Trump, by MAGA, is to normalize it and have it not feel dystopian. And I think if you get stuck in that not everyone's day-to-day life is going to feel that dark. I don't have a National Guard right on my doorstep right now, but I'm not going to be sanguine about seeing it in D.C. when Donald Trump himself is actively telegraphing that he wants to spread it elsewhere. I mean, there is the Washington Post story this week, and this the one heartening thing about this past month. So in a lot of cases, you need a grand jury to indict on a felony. And I actually served on a grand jury last year, so I've had this experience. Generally, there's a saying that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. And there's a lot of truth to that because the grand jury process is one-sided. It's not both sides. You literally are only hearing from the prosecutor. And the standard is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just, is there enough here to warrant trying the case? So you really don't have to do too much to get an indictment because anything you kind of raise, it's like the prosecutor say that's for trial. That's not for here to hash out. And we've had now several cases in DC of people arrested on clearly bogus charges, the most famous being the guy who threw the sandwich. And the grand jury saying, no.
Well, and they said that was assault. with a deadly
Right,
hoagie, right?
right. They tried to say that was a felony charge, and the grand jury is like, no, I'm sorry. I mean, so again, to the extent, I mean, so there's many horrible things happening. You might say, it's not so bad. We're all living our lives here because we have a freaking constitution. The constitution still exists. We have not totally gone down into full fascism. And an example of that is the judicial process. A group of citizens decides if someone is indicted for a felony or not. It's not just singularly done by Donald Trump or his cronies. And those citizens of DC are saying, no, sorry, this is bogus. We're not going to do it. So there are some people here within in the constitutional system who are standing up and saying, no, I'm not going to let this happen in my city. So thank you to them.
Yeah. Thank you to them. I agree. It's scary, dude. It's scary. And Trump is slowly rolling over all these different institutions. And you're right. I mean, so I have a piece coming out in the LA Times making this case that I was just talking about. But it lays out the litany of just in the last week or two of crazy things Trump has done. And I was just thinking this morning when I was driving back from dropping my son off at school, I was like, if I had written 10 years ago that this was going to happen, people they would be like, well, this is obviously a dictatorship that's taking over, right? I mean, if they believed me, if they didn't laugh me out of the room, it would be like, well, these are all telltale signs of like a dictatorship emerging.
Well, and if you said it, a little less than 10 years ago, people would say, oh, you're taking Trump too literally. You got to take him seriously, but not literally. He's not literally going to do all these things. That's ridiculous.
Well, look, and the key to this whole thing, Bill, and to go back to the Velociraptor story is, I mean, Donald Trump always had authoritarian tendencies, but he didn't have the infrastructure to impose them. He didn't have the knowledge or the infrastructure. And he initially was surrounded by people who were loyal to institutions and history and the Constitution. Those people have been weeded out. Then the best thing that happened to Trump is losing in 2020. And they had 4 years to come up with this game plan and to, the Stephen Millers and the Russ Votes of the world really utilized that time. And Trump seems to be in very bad health. He is obviously getting older. That may be kind of the only saving grace here.
Well, except if he's built up a team that's going to keep it going, whether he's on this plan or not.
But yeah, they'll try, and they might be able to. But I do think that Trump is uniquely popular and charismatic, and that a J.D. Vance trying to implement the Stephen Miller playbook may not.
Medvedev.
Yeah,
Vance is the Medvedev. But one thing he's done that we haven't talked about, and I know we can't talk forever, but I do think it's important, is trying to fire Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve. Again, a clear of abuse of power. Almost, I think it has to be ruled as illegal. You can fire these people on the Fed for cause, but you can't just assert cause. You need to have actual charges, actual convictions. I mean, you can just say she's made a mortgage fraud. I decree it. Like, that's not how our judicial system works. And this is where I think, if you're a Republican, for God's sake, think a few steps ahead, people. Okay, I know it's hard to stand up to Trump when your base is there ready to eat you alive and knock you out of a primary. Like, I get it. I know it's not easy. You feel you're kind of stuck in it. But if you wreck the independence of the Federal Reserve and put in political hacks, you are going to wreck the economy, and people are going to notice. So you're saying, like, people don't care about this stuff in an abstract way. It doesn't affect their day-to-day lives. You wreck the Fed, people are gonna know. They may not know in a day, but they're gonna find out soon enough when they screw up how the economy is run, and there's going to be a political reckoning for that. And as a Republican, Republicans cut Richard Nixon loose. They saw where that was going. Now, granted, it was after his popularity was down to like the 20s, so it was a little easier for them. It's harder when.
And they didn't have Fox News either. They didn't have Fox News or podcasts or
I get all
Twitter.
That. Yeah. You should be thinking about how to separate yourself from what is clearly a Titanic heading into an iceberg. The only thing that's going to save you from that is if the Supreme Court prevents Trump from his worst impulses and rejects the firing. But it's going to have a destabilizing effect on stuff in advance because people are worried, like, what's going to happen with the Fed here? How can I even make a business plan when everything that's being done on the tariffs and on this is totally uncertain and destabilized on a minute-to-minute basis? It's insane.
So far, hasn't happened. Look, he got burned with COVID, right? He wasn't prepared for COVID. It comes along and it pushes him out of office.
Well, that's another thing we haven't talked about is how they're screwing
it happened again,
and how they're wrecking the CDC. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
keep it all in my head, Matt. I realize.
No, it's too much, right? And
what's that?
Trump is laying the groundwork or sowing the seeds for a lot of horrible things that could happen. The problem is they could happen in 4 years instead of 3.5.
But they're
right.
I mean, they have such a diverse portfolio of insanity that one of them's going to pay off. One of them is going to implode. One of them's going to detonate. It's like last time it was COVID. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong here, and they may not all go wrong right away. They may not go as wrong as I worry about. Something's going to go wrong, and you're not going to blame shift it. It's going to be on your watch. And it's one thing if, as a Republican, he's doing things that are so deeply important to your set of principles, and you think even though there's going to be tough times, it's all going to work out in the end. He's got to stick. Like Democrats are going to stick with Obamacare. We believe that. I know it's unpopular today, but we stick with it. It's going to look better in the future. There is nothing about decimating the CDC and decimating the Federal Reserve and decimating the system of international trade that's going to pay off down the line. And nothing about any of those things is in any way Republican. So you don't have to go down with that ship. You can save yourself now.
Totally with you. To me, it's just a question of, it's a ticking time bomb, but does it go off with Trump holding the bag, or does it manifest later when the next person comes in and gets blindsided by whatever horrible, thing RFK Jr. has done? All right. I guess that's it for us, Bill. It's been a hell of an exciting and uplifting conversation, let me say, but at least we get to keep Uncle Herschel. Anything you want to plug?
I do. So the Washington Monthly published this week its annual college guide, which is not like any other college rankings that you've seen. It assesses the value of the university to the consumer, the bang for the buck, how it actually helps people advance, in the workplace, how it helps with societal mobility and giving back to society. Check that out. Even my editor-in-chief, Paul Glasris, went on Steve Bannon's podcast to talk about it. That even though we're, Center Left magazine, I think this concept of how to look at higher education in a different way has appeal across the board. And I wasn't involved in the rankings directly, but I do have an article in the print issue relevant to Trump and vocational education, how he's not what he claims to be on that. So do check that out. Print copy at your local newsstand or online.
Awesome. I had a piece in the LA Times about AI and how that could be the thing. That wouldn't really be Trump's fault, although he's not prepared to deal with it. But if AI ends up replacing a bunch of jobs, as it might on his watch. So check that out. Also, I've got a piece coming out tomorrow. We're taping this on a Thursday. Coming out tomorrow about all of Trump's threats to liberal democracy and why that probably isn't the thing that will take him down, even if it should. Check that out. Bill Scher, always a pleasure.
Same here, Matt Lewis. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
You too, and hopefully we'll see you back here in the DMZ next week.
America is still standing.